to the MMA Fan Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Stu and Blake.
Hello and welcome to the MMA Fan Show. I am Blake Harrison. Joining me as ever is Stuart Waffan.
All right.
Yeah, how's it going?
Yeah, more elaborate every show.
That's
more
my
and more,
aim.
and
That is my
higher.
aim. Higher pitched.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're a bit of a media darling, aren't you, with your vocal range?
That's what they call me. Media darling with the vocal range.
Harrison, the media darling.
Oh, yeah,
can
mate.
really hit those high points. How are you? You all right?
I might. It's a bit chilly in here today, isn't it, mate?
Ridiculous.
Chilly.
It felt that it was a bit bad for us to be sitting here in coats, but the pipes on the heating system in this studio are frozen. So it's ridiculous. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to be looking at my phone as well on this episode because the printer in my office, the printer literally come up on the screen today until printer reaches room temperature, unable to print. Even the printer's cold today. It's about -4. It's ridiculous, isn't it?
It's very, very cold. We got the heating working for we've got a little electric heater down here.
Don't let them know that.
Mate, this feels lovely. I might just dip down. That feels so nice. But yeah, that's what's trying to keep us going.
Yeah.
I thought there'd be like air coming out of our mouths that you could see, visually
Not
see
yet.
that. Not
Not
yet.
yet.
But we're getting there. So we're going to very frostily talk about UFC 297.
It's going down at is it Scotiabank? Scotiabank Arena in Canada.
Maybe very apt that we're cold for this. It's in Canada. Scotiabank.
Method acting, darling.
Yes, I did actually see some breath just come out of your
Oh,
mouth.
did you?
It's going to get cold. It's getting cold, boy. But yeah, so very aptly, we'll be very frostily talking you through UFC 297 coming at you from Canada. So should we just dive straight in? Yeah, boy. Strickland versus Du Plessis. Look at it. Still looks weird, doesn't it?
It
Strickland
looks
with the
so
belt.
weird.
Still
It looks so
weird.
weird, mate.
But yes, I mean, I'll start us off.
Okay.
And I'll say, I thought I knew who these two men were before their last fights. I
Okay.
thought we were looking at a top 10 guy in Sean Strickland, never really going to fight for a belt. And then Dricus was he was an exciting fighter in a lot of ways, but such a terrible gas tank that when he fights the elite, he'll get found out.
He's got a new nose.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Cut to Dricus fighting Rob with his new nose. No gas tank issues.
Yeah.
And I'll get back to this in a minute, but so he absolutely smashed through Robert Whittaker. And then Sean Strickland 6 weeks later fights Israel Adesanya. And you're like, what have I just watched?
Yeah.
So basically, I have zero real idea who's going to win this fight because I don't know who either of these men are. Because the people I thought they were is just not who the fighters I thought they were. Not who they are. Their ceilings are much higher than I thought they were. So we could literally be looking at the two best middleweights in the world. That's very possible. I know that Izzy's still out there, Hamzat's out there, but what do you think? Do you think we could actually be looking at the best two middleweights on the planet right now when we look at these two men?
Sean Strickland, no. No.
But I mean, look what he did.
No, I know. And I'm not suggesting that Izzy was having a bad day, but, I mean, we saw what Pereira done to him. And, yeah, I don't think he's the best. I mean, the picture tells a different story. He's got that strap over his shoulder, which is bananas. When we done our predictions of the year last year, none of us would ever have in a million years guessed this.
Hell no. So last year, he was coming off of, I think, 2 back-to-back losses. One of them to Alex Pereira, where he got just sent to the Shadow Realm. And then the other one's Cannonier in maybe a slightly controversial, I think it was a split decision.
Yeah.
But he's coming off 2 losses. And not to guys that, Alex Pereira, obviously, but Jared Cannonier, fought for a belt, was not he's in his late 30s. He's not someone that anyone's predicting to be a champion anytime soon or anything, as much as he's a decent fighter. So to come back from that and then at the year that he had, particularly, again, beating Imavov surprised me. Abus Magomedov kind of didn't really mean anything. to go into that Adesanya fight and do what he did was just crazy. Have we been selling him short? Has everything clicked for him? Is he now the best middleweight on the planet?
No. No, definitely not.
Clip that. That's a nice 10-second clip for the shorts. Is he the best middleweight on the planet? No. Moving on. There you go. Great.
So let's talk about his strengths, right? So I think his strengths are, right, I do think, Pereira fight aside, he's got quite a good guard. I like that sort of Philly shell he fights in. I think it's quite interesting. I think he's quite good at sort of dictating the pace of fights. I think
he's a good pressure fighter. Both of them are actually.
Yeah,
I think,
and so I wonder, is Dricus going to be able to kind of sort of get them big power shots off? And is that guard going to be covering him? Is he going to gas? I don't know. If he's going to be dealing with that kind of onward pressure that Strickland likes to throw. I think we was chatting about this briefly before we started, and I was like, I don't want to talk about it. Because I do think that people forget, early on in his career, Dricus won a lot of fights on the ground.
Yeah.
And I think that's where he wins this fight, and I think that's how this fight's going to go.
It's really interesting you say that because
you think the complete opposite.
No. I'm going to have to skip through some notes here because I had it sort of laid out for me because I do think that Dricus has the edge in power, but I think Strickland has the edge obviously in cardio, defensive striking, all that stuff. He's more than happy to have a 5-round fight, Strickland. He's done it loads. Dricus, I believe, has been booked in 5-round fights, but he's never actually had to go into the championship rounds as far as I'm aware.
Had we not have seen him post-nose job, not nose job, whatever surgery he's had.
I like to call it a nose job.
Let's call it a nose job.
A nose job.
Like, had we not have seen that performance, I think we'd be like Dricus, 5 rounds, no chance.
Nope.
But I don't think that's...
But we still could say that because he's dispatched of Robert Whittaker in the second round. So we still haven't seen him in championship rounds or anything like that. I do think there's going to be a narrative out there which makes a lot of sense of if Strickland gets through the first 2 rounds and he's, okay still, I think we could really see momentum shift. And as the fight goes on, Dricus tires. I mean, look at his body as well. Dricus is a big middleweight, carries a lot of muscle. People like that tire quicker. So Strickland, if he can just survive the first 2 rounds, the fight could be his. Even if he's 2-0 down on the scorecards, he could win 3, 4 and 5 and come back. What I wanted to pick up on and what you said about winning fights on the ground is I'd be really interested to see if Dricus tries to wrestle because that will drain the gas tank quicker, potentially, especially if Strickland gets to his feet a lot more. But I think when you look at Strickland's middleweight run, he's fought mostly strikers. He hasn't fought people that have tried to really take him down. You look at most of Strickland's fights, you're looking at Izzy, Abus Magomedov, Imavov, Cannonier, Pereira, Uriah Hall, Jotko, Jack Marshman. None of these guys are trying to take you down. That's all a very good point. Strikers. Only Brendan Allen and Hermansson, as he fought, that like it on the ground. But they're not really wrestlers. They are... They're grapplers, they're jiu-jitsu guys and stuff like that. I don't think of them as like your proper, I'm going to go and try and take you down and with like a double leg or anything like that. And Dricus can do that. And Dricus, as we saw in the Robert Whittaker fight, got close into the clinch and did like a couple of throws and stuff like that to take that fight to the ground. And he really smashed up Robert Whittaker on the ground quite with some big elbows towards the end of that first round. So, I mean, when I look back at the last good wrestler that Strickland fought, I have to go back to his welterweight days and look at Kamaru Usman. And Usman dominated him. Strickland was able to get back to the feet a few times, but Usman dominated him. Now, this is back before Usman was a champion. It's a long time ago. Strickland's improved a lot since then. But we're dealing with a guy now that is a proper middleweight that is happy to try and take you down. Is it a risk because maybe it would drain Dricus's gas tank early? Potentially. But I would really like to see if Dricus can just throw in a couple of takedown attempts in the first, 5-6 minutes of the fight. And that might open up his striking a little bit more and maybe get Strickland to drop those hands a little bit more, get out of that Philly shell and all that kind of stuff. And maybe that's where he can catch him with a big shot.
Do you think it's going to be an exciting fight?
Yeah, I really do. I really do. Say what you want about these men. I'm not looking forward to the press conferences. A lot of people are. I am not looking forward to the build-up to this fight. Both of them have said some very controversial things that I'm not a fan of. But when the two of them get into the cage, I expect both of them to come forward. And I don't really expect anyone to take a backward step. I mean, I don't think Dricus can fight like that, really. And I think Sean can potentially fight in a more counter-striking manner, but he loves to pressure forward. And I think, given everything that Dricus has said recently, some of the things that Sean has come out saying, things like, if he mentions certain aspects of my history again, I'm going to stab him. I'm like, really? Is that where we're at? The middleweight champion of the world? And I know that what he's been through was incredibly traumatic and awful, and I think it's out of order for Dricus to have brought that up in the manner that he did in the press conference. But the middleweight champion of the world is threatening to stab someone.
Man,
what? Like, what are we doing?
Unfortunately, there's an element of the fan community that probably quite enjoys it.
Yeah.
And what you've got in the UFC is an organisation that probably isn't going to kind of go, you can't say that. You know, Dana's many times gone, hey, it's the fight game. And like, but I don't know. We spoke about this, didn't we, on a previous episode when all the shit went down at the fight where he jumped into Dricus and the press conference. But it's just grotty, man. And it's like you say, he's the champ. He should be better than that. Yeah. And if he's not, and they're the things he wants to say, then just don't say anything. But it's become, that's his kind of shtick now. Like, that's what he does. It's Sean Strickland. He talks smack on the mic and
say what you like about it. It's sort of made him a bit of a star.
Massively.
People gravitate towards
Massively.
it. It's not my vibe, but there you go.
Who do you think the Canadian crowd are going to be cheering for?
I think Strickland. I think Strickland oddly has become a bit of an anti-hero for people. He is like the voice that's saying what some certain type of person wants to say but can't, or something like that, or doesn't feel like they should. He seems to just say it, and I think for whatever reason, a certain type of person enjoys that. So yeah, there's that. So I think he will get the appreciation from the crowd. However, as far as I'm aware, he has said some derogatory things about Canada, because Canada don't allow you to just walk around with a gun. Oh, Canada, why can't you just let us walk around with guns?
Canada, have a word with yourselves.
Oh, come on, let's just give everyone a gun. Oh, yeah. He said some stuff about Canada.
He said some stuff about everyone and everything.
But I wonder if the Canadians at this event might be in agreement with some stuff that he said. Okay. So I think Dricus will be the bad guy here, and I think that Sean will be a kind of weird anti-hero that actually gets a big cheer.
What a fucking world we live in, Blake Harrison.
World we live in. But then, look, don't get me wrong. I think Dricus has said enough to make him the bad guy in a lot of these situations.
Yeah.
And as much as we have been on this show multiple times now talking about what Sean Strickland says about women, about LGBTQ community, about women's MMA, about, he does not stop saying things that I think are just not very bright and are a bit offensive. However, Dricus has said some awful stuff as well, and some of it about Strickland's past, which I thought was definitely crossing the line. So I don't really know if I care which one of them wins, if I'm perfectly honest.
I think I do think that Dricus wins this fight, and because I don't want the champ to be Sean Strickland. I don't think it's a good look. You're constantly trying to, get your friends on into MMA, and then when you kind of go, because everyone, middleweight, what division to watch? Yeah. And then you go, who's the champ? This guy. You for real? What's the deal with this? It's not a good look, man.
It's not a good look, but for whatever reason, it seems to be that a contingent of the fan base are well into it.
Yeah.
So it makes money. Excuse me. It sells. So I think we might be in the minority of fans that feel this way. I don't know. Let us know. I'm sure you will, especially if you're a big Strickland fan. We've had that before, actually. Someone said, I'm not watching this anymore because of what you said about Strickland. And I'm like, probably calling us snowflakes. I'm like, that's the snowflakiest comment you've ever given. I can't watch this now because you said something about Strickland.
I'm not playing anymore.
I'm not taking my ball back and going home.
Did I just call him a melt? And I think someone got really upset that I called him a melt.
Well, it worked for him. The melt curse was in full
the
effect.
melt curse.
Thank
Jesus.
God that didn't work for Colby.
Absolutely.
But so all right, so you're going for Dricus.
Yes.
I'm also leaning Dricus, but I have to say, if we get into a third round of this fight and Dricus starts breathing through his mouth and Sean is just there with potentially blood on his face, punching himself in the chin before he walks out for the round going, I don't care, let's just go. I think Strickland could take him into rounds 4 and 5 and get a late finish because I do worry about the discrepancy in their cardio.
Yeah. I'm just not that excited about this fight. I'm not a fan of them.
I'm excited about it as a fight. I think it will be a good fight.
I hope
I'm not going to put too much of a dampener on it. As people, they've said enough things that make me go, I don't know that you're a great person. But I think that as a fight, I think it should be a really fun one. I think they're both going to come forward. They're both going to throw. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if we get a really early finish. And I also wouldn't be surprised if we get an all-out war for 5 rounds. I don't think this fight will be boring. That is one thing. I don't think this fight will be boring.
Well, I hope it's good because for the co-main, is it the co-main? It must be.
It's the co-main, yeah, for the vacant bantamweight title. Bueno Silva and Raquel Pennington. You seem a bit nonplussed.
Yeah, I am very nonplussed. You excited about this?
I think, again, this actually might be an okay fight. I think this could be good. I think Bueno Silva is on a finishing streak. She's really good. She's on a 4-fight win streak if you don't include the no contest that we spoke about in a previous episode where it was she tested positive for Ritalin, which is for her ADHD, but it wasn't declared previously. So she got a 4-month suspension and the Holly Holm fight has been turned into a no contest.
That's right.
However, I don't know how much that had an effect on the fight. I think she finished Holly Holm and not many people finish Holly Holm. And I think Bueno Silva's looking really, really good. And then you cut over to Pennington, 5-fight winning streak. Yes, 4 of those are by decision, but, you know, these are 2 deserving people to fight for a belt. The bantamweight division at the moment isn't looking great.
Right, so I've found this quote and...
okay.
See what you make of this.
Who's this from, or do you not want to tell me who it's from yet?
No, it was just on an MMA site. I was just flicking through the comments.
So I love how you're quoting just random person.
Just an absolute fan.
Absolute random person. Yep.
Yeah.
What's this going to say?
So at random guy wrote, it's kind of insane that Silva went 2-2-1 at flyweight, then changed to bantamweight, beat a can in Yan'an Wu, and a trio of old women in Landsberg and Holm, the first 3 of which were on the prelim cards, and now have a title fight. But what is even more insane is that she actually might be the best current bantamweight in the organisation. Talk about a bad division for that sequence of events to make sense.
I think it's very unfair to start just labelling Holly as just like an old... She's still one of the best. It's not her fault that the rest of the division...
At some random guy.
Hey, well, you're quoting at random guy, so you are the mouthpiece for at random guy. You're going to get this heat. So, you can't... Holly Holm is a legend. She's a former champion. She is just as not just MMA, but kickboxing, boxing. She's a legend of combat sports. Sounds like you don't. But
biggest shock. I've always said he's her and Ronda. Yeah. You never went with that. I always say that's the biggest upset in UFC.
I thought Holly had more of a chance than people were giving her, but I think that's unfair to point out that. But I also think if you're pointing out the fact that she's been on the prelims a lot, that's not Bueno Silva's fault. I mean, she's just had 3 finishes on the bounce. That's not her fault. That's the UFC's fault. I think it's very fair to say, and maybe it's because the division as a whole isn't great. This used to be a premier division. Strawweight and flyweight have now massively overtaken bantamweight in women's MMA as the better divisions in the sport, the more exciting divisions in the sport. Bantamweight is now lagging behind that. But if you've got ranked fighters fighting on prelims, why are people going to get excited about them when they're then co-main event and fighting for the belt? They're not. So that's bad on the UFC.
As in the marketing of fighters.
The marketing of fight. You can't put these people on the bottom end of the prelims and then a fight or two later go, now they're fighting for the belt. Be excited. Fans are going to go, why? They were just on like the lower ends of the prelims. They're on the Fight Pass prelims or something. Yeah. That's not the fighter's fault. That's the UFC's fault.
Yeah.
So, again, I think that's slightly harsh talking about it that way, unless their point was to critique the UFC. But getting back to the fight, I mean, Pennington has got way more experience. That is one thing that you've got to give to Pennington. I think Bueno Silva is a more lethal fighter, lethal on the ground with submissions. I think she's got more power in her hands. She uses like Muay Thai clinch to throw knees and stuff like that. Bueno Silva is the more dangerous fighter, in my opinion. But when it comes to experience and just doggedness and toughness, Pennington's got it in spades. I mean, she's fought Nunes. She's fought Holm twice. She's fought Jessica Andrade. She's fought Irina Aldana, who recently fought for the belt. Misha Tate, Ketlin Vieira. She has fought the best of the best. And it is fair to say that her resume, even though a lot of those fights were losses, in terms of experience, it's way better than
and that
Bueno
experience
Silva's.
will really come into its own. Because this, I mean, is this the first time that Silva's fought 5 rounds?
I believe it is. Pennington obviously has fought for a belt before, so she has got, I don't know if she went the full 5 rounds with Nunes. She might have done, or she got finished maybe quite late. So, but she is incredibly hard to finish, Pennington. She's only been finished by, I think, Kat Zingano, which was about 11 years ago in Invicta, and Nunes for the title. Yes, that was it. The Nunes for the title in 2018. They're the only ones to have ever finished Raquel Pennington. So it's going to be really, really tough to put Pennington away. And much like with the main event, there's a very real possibility that we get Bueno Silva dominating the first 2 rounds and then Pennington thinking, or then gassing out, and then Pennington coming on really strong for the last kind of 3 and a bit or 2 and a bit rounds, and we see the tables turn, the momentum shift, and and there's also in terms of the possibility of it being a bit of a boring fight, I do think there's a world in which Pennington could just push Bueno Silva up against the fence and keep her there. I think she'll be lacking in size, but I do think she's got that kind of dogged toughness where she could push her against the fence and potentially make it a bit boring.
But we could see the best in Silva's tie clinch in them points. Do you know what I mean? If she can get that up to
potentially
tie clinch, then we could see some, some naughty knees and elbows. But
I
haven't got a lot more to say about this one. I'm not super hyped for it.
I'm going for a Bueno Silva win.
Yeah, agreed.
I think that she could get a finish early. And that's maybe what this division needs as well. It needs a champion, someone that's coming in, dispatching of people and not just grinding out like a decision. We want to see something a bit more exciting. And Bueno Silva has provided that in the bantamweight division. And I think if we know anything about Dana, we know anything about the UFC, he does reward people when they're getting finishes.
Yep.
And so that's probably another reason why Bueno Silva has zoomed up the rankings and got this opportunity. But yeah, let's not sugarcoat it. Bantamweight is in a poor place right now in terms of its position as a division, with the loss of Nunes and her kind of clearing out that division and no one else being close. But maybe we could see some exciting fights going forward, especially if Bueno Silva's the champ.
Let's hope so.
Let's hope so. This is the one.
Now, I don't believe this is the next fight on the card.
No, but I'm happy to skip through and get to this one. This is the one.
This one because, we love Arnold, right? Like he's a future champion, in my opinion, and I did call that as well. That I said 2025.
Yep.
If all goes to plan, in a prediction that a lot of people really did not like on TikTok.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I said that Max is going to be the champ at the end of the year. One quote was, how to show you know nothing about MMA in one sentence.
I really hope for you that Max does it now. But yeah, no, it was an interesting pick.
Yeah.
I think there was logic in it. I mean, it's very possible that Topuria beats Volk, as sad as that makes me feel. And then it's possible that Max beats Topuria. So it makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. But if there is a rematch with Max, Arnold takes it this time.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's got to get through a big test this Saturday.
I mean, and let's not underestimate that test. Evloev is 17-0. I think he's by far the best wrestler that Arnold Allen has fought, and he is also a good striker. I mean, I would go
He's
as far
striking. He's not as good as Arnold Allen striking.
It's not as good, but he's still good. Like, if you're worried about the takedown, what that does is it just like, if Arnold is a 10 out of 10 on striking, I'm not necessarily saying that he's a 10 out of 10, but let's just say for numbers, he's a 10 out of 10 and Evloev's a 7. The threat of those takedowns will bring Arnold down to an 8 and boost Evloev up to an 8. Like, those things happen. It's just when you're someone that is just the striker and you've got to worry about both the hands and feet coming at you and the takedowns, it just lessens your ability to be comfortable in those striking exchanges. You've got that extra thing to worry about. You see it all the time. And with wrestlers, as soon as they can land that takedown and show they can take you down, it really opens up their striking and gives them confidence to throw. So, yeah, I think Arnold is Evloev's toughest fight so far.
100%.
But Evloev is the toughest wrestler Arnold has fought so far. And what Evloev does as well that is really scary, he's not one of those wrestlers that backs you up. He's not like Usman or Covington or someone like that, where they seem to have to back you up against the cage before they start going for the takedowns. Evloev will shoot for you in the middle of the octagon. He will take you down and grab a leg right in the middle of the octagon. You never know when it's coming. Where Leon's game plan against Usman was keep away from the fence, keep away from the fence. And then obviously deal with a takedown if it comes, but try and keep your back off that fence. That won't work with Evloev. He'll just shoot at you in the middle of the cage. And it is, you just never know what's coming. And he's quick, he's explosive. It's a really tough fight. I would go as far as...
I mean, if we're talking explosive, right? I don't know if you remember Arnold Allen, he fought Dan Hooker. That was explosive, my friend.
It was, but that was unique for Arnold to use the... Like, he's clearly got the power.
His hands are fast, man. That straight left he's got, and that low kick, I think the low kicks are going to be really key for Arnold in this fight.
Well, he's going to have to be very careful, because if he throws a low kick that's a bit too slow or a bit off point, Evloev will take him down with that. Arnold, his footwork and speed need to be on point, and I would love for him to bring some of that Dan Hooker power. I know that ended up being a brawl, which is maybe why he did it, but he's got to let that power go, because Evloev, once he gets you down, if he gets your back, you can't get back up. It's a really, really tough fight. I'd go as far as to say I'd back the winner of this fight to be a champ. Doesn't necessarily have to be in the next year or two, but the winner of this fight becomes a champion, because I do think Evloev is that good, and I believe in Arnold as well. But I'm worried for Arnold, because I do think this is a really, really tough fight. I remember chatting to Lerone Murphy a while ago on something I did with him, and I think that he'd been in Thailand with and Evloev was there, and he was like, that guy's a beast. He is very, very good. So, yeah, it's going to be a real tough one for Arnold, but we're hoping that he gets it done. So
Arnold's been training out in Canada, right? It looks like
Has he been back at TriStar?
It looks like he's been back out there for a long time now. I'm sure at TriStar there's some elite level wrestlers, and they're going to be schooling Arnold. Also, Arnold Allen's strong, man.
He's really strong.
And like, I just think it's his time. Look at how people were predicting things might go when he fought Max Holloway, and look how fucking great he done against Max Holloway. I think, yes, there's more potential wrestling involved in this fight. You know, we know Max is predominantly a striker. I think Arnold is going to outstrike him, and I think when he does get to the ground, it won't be, you know, Arnold's strength in the fight, but I do think his actual strength will see him through it, and I pick Arnold by decision.
I think that's a good bit. I think this will probably be a decision. I think this is likely to be a decision, whether it's Evloev taking his back and just dominating him for 3 rounds, or whether it's Arnold just keeping it on the feet, picking him with strikes. I'd love to see Arnold get a finish, and because he's got the power. I just feel like he doesn't always let it let it go. But he has to be so careful in this fight.
This is an important fight for Arnold because, yes, he's got the max loss. His stock has not gone down. If anything, it went up after that fight because he went from not fighting that regular to then all of a sudden he's fighting Max Holloway and he put in a fantastic performance and it was pretty close.
It was close.
And as we say, aside from Volk, Max is the best in the world, and I think this is a very winnable fight for Arnold, and I think he's going to do it, and I think he'll do it by decision.
I really hope so, and I can definitely see that happening. I'm a big Evloev fan, though, and I do think Evloev is very, very good. But, yeah, got to pick Arnold. Praying for Arnold, hoping for Arnold.
Absolutely.
But yeah, if Evloev does win this fight, the thought of Evloev versus
I think the pressure's
Topuria
on Arnold to win this because if he loses this, it's a long way back for a title shot.
Yeah, possibly. He's going to get fed to a few killers and stuff. But I think he's young. Like, both these guys, I think, are only 29 years old. I think Arnold's 30 very soon. But both these guys are 29 years old. Like, they've got more chances. They've got more chances. And again, either of them losing to the other, as much as it sets them back because they haven't got that kind of star power personality appeal that the UFC seems to go for, they will have to fight a good few fights before getting back. But they can because they're that good. And losing to the other one is not a shameful thing. Like they are both top fighters, and obviously we want Arnold to win. But if Evloev won and he's undefeated, and Topuria beats Volk and he's undefeated, that is some fight to potentially have in the future. The two of those undefeated featherweights going at each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Come on, Arnold, mate.
Come on, Arnold, with your huge, muscular, beautiful back.
Mike Malott's a handsome man, isn't he?
He is. He's a good-looking lad, isn't he?
Yeah. Hometown hero.
Hometown hero, yeah.
He fights out of Sacramento, I believe, but he is Canadian.
He is Canadian.
He got the win at the last UFC over there, didn't he?
He did, and he really got the crowd going. They love him. I think this is really good matchmaking for Mike Malott. I mean, he's 3-0, I think, since getting into UFC with 3 finishes. Another guy being rewarded for finishes.
Is he contender series?
Yes, I believe so. He's not faced anyone of Magny's stature and ability yet. And if this isn't in Canada, I'm not even sure if he does get this fight. But I think the fact that he's had the finishes, the fact that it is in Canada, I think the UFC are hoping to set him up for a special win. And it'd be a shame for Magny. Obviously, he's coming off the Gary loss. But if he stops the hype train that is Mike Malott, puts him back in, not necessarily in the mix for anything huge, but just cements his place and his status as that kind of guy you have to get through, that gatekeeper.
Fuck being Neil Magny, man.
I know, he keeps getting all the tough fights, but what do you do? I mean, it's just he's fallen at the hurdles at the top of the division, but he's beat the guys that can't quite get ranked or are outside of the top kind of 12.
I wonder how rounded Malott is, because again,
I think he's very
just to
well
kind of
rounded.
go back to the Gary fight, we've still not seen much of Ian Gary's groundwork in the UFC. We saw it in Cage Warriors, and it was solid, and it can only have got better since then. But I think Malott is definitely more. I think he's a more exciting striker than Neil Magny.
For
and
sure.
I think, much like Dricus, I think we're going to see Magny try and get this down and on the ground and try and sort of.
Well, Malott's looked dangerous on the ground when he gets there. He has taken people down. He has got like guillotines and stuff.
Give Neil Magny a break, man. I'm just trying to kind of throw him a bone here.
I know. I mean, look, we know what Magny brings. He brings very good cardio. He's rangy. He's awkward. He does do well with his grappling. I think he's stronger than he looks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is good matchmaking. If Magny only really loses to fighters that are like top 10 kind of guys, he loses to the Garys, Burns, Shavkats, Chiesas, RDA way back when. If Malott looks good against him and potentially even gets a finish, that's it, man. This guy is coming to be a top 5 guy potentially, and I think welterweight's looking great at the moment. Like welterweight in terms of like young guys coming through to really freshen up that division. You've got like Ian Gary, Sean Brady, Shavkat, Jack Della Maddalena, and now Mike Malott as well.
Yeah.
So welterweight is looking very, very healthy.
You pick Malott.
I'm going to pick Malott just for the buzz of the home crowd.
Yeah.
But if Magny gets it done, that's what Magny does in these kinds of fights. He can certainly do it.
Yeah. Okay. I will go with you on that as well.
No.
Well, I guess there's not loads of other fights that I wanted to sort of talk about on this card.
We've not spoken about Chris Curtis versus Marc-Andre Barriault, which is a main card fight, I believe. But let's skip ahead to the Englishman.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sam Patterson is taking on Lenes. I think that's how you pronounce his name.
It's is it Lenes? Yeah, I guess so.
Lenes. Anyway, this shows our
Lanesi.
Patterson going up to welterweight for this one.
I think he has got to put on something good here, and I think he's going to want to put on something good because the last time when Sam made his UFC debut was at London. We was there, and it was horrible. He got knocked out.
Yes.
Then he had another round fighting the ref, and it was rough. Yeah. And it must have been a very, very bitter pill to swallow that. And so I want to see him come back because, his record's solid, And I'd love to see this. I'd love to see this. And Leonis come off of he was the guy that Malott beat, wasn't he?
Yes. I mean, it's a tricky one. I don't know what to think about the move to welterweight. I mean, what I like is that he's had a good 9 months off since that knockout, so he's recovered, which I like. Unlike, for example, in UFC 298, we'll be talking about Volkanovski, who hasn't taken that time. Sam's taken that time, which I think is really mature, really good move. Is moving up to welterweight the right thing to do? I mean, he's 6'3" or whatever. He must cut a lot of weight to get down to lightweight, but he is a slim man. And you look at Lenes, and you can't necessarily tell in this photo so much, but when you watch him fight, he looks thick set.
Well, I mean, this is a photo, but before that jump to 170. So hopefully, we're going to see a bigger Sam Patterson.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is like if he's just
6'3",
decided,
I know what you're saying.
If he's just decided not to cut, and he's going up against these bigger boys, that worries me. Because also, Sam fights in sometimes a very, very exciting way, but defensively, he's got a little bit of the Paddy Pimblett about him sometimes, where he's quite upright and his chin is in the air a bit. And I hope that he is looking at that and remedying that as well. Because even if you watch his Contender Series fight, he got clipped. Quite a few times he got clipped. And at this level, especially if you're going up in weight with these more powerful people, if he gets clipped, he could get knocked out again. And I really hope that's not the case. I mean, he's going into enemy territory, so he's going to get booed. But hopefully he can silence it.
Lanesi is a Canadian, isn't he?
Yes, yeah. So he's going to get booed. They're going to cheer for the Canadian man.
Do you know what? Does that alleviate the pressure from Sam? Because walking out into London for your debut at the O2, the pressure must have been unbelievable. That he would have put on himself and the expectation of there's the Brit in the octagon, in London, he's got to win. Everyone's roaring for him. Here, can he channel them boos and just go, right, I'm in enemy territory here. This is all to be played for. And I think, I don't know, it was very close. Sam was poorly, wasn't he, a little while ago?
Yes, we nearly
had him to come in and talk to us, and we'll get Sam in after this fight. To have that catch up with him. But I think sometimes going into that environment where all of the expectation is on your opponent and, you're freed up to just focus on what you've got to do. I hope that's the case, and I hope that Sam gets a win and comes back to the UK hyped for an exciting career, maybe at 170.
Yeah, look, I really hope you're right. I really hope so. He's good on the ground, Sam, as well. He's got those kind of like thin arms that can get into like a Darce choke and a guillotine really, really well. And he's got a few of those finishes on his record as well. So yeah, I really hope he can do it. But there's going to be pressure on him regardless because he lost his last fight. He lost his debut. If he loses 2 in a row, especially if it's in like both knockouts, then there's the thing of like, well, are you going to get cut and stuff like that, which obviously we're hoping doesn't happen with Sam. But you just never know. Fingers crossed for him. Fingers crossed.
Absolutely.
Any other fights that we want to talk about? Do we want to quickly mention Chris Curtis versus Marc-Andre Barriault? I mean, there's not a huge amount at stake. I think Chris Curtis is ranked 13th, so if Andre Barriault gets a win, he'll be ranked in the top 15. Chris Curtis obviously trains with Strickland.
That's probably why that's there, isn't it? They're buds, isn't it?
They're buds, and Barriault's another Canadian. So that makes sense, you know, Strickland and Curtis on the same kind of camp schedule. That's probably really good for them and their preparations. And then Marc-Andre Barriault gets to fight at home. I think that this could be a fun fight. I think there's a world in which they both come forward. Marc-Andre Barriault, I think, will probably prefer it at more of a kickboxing range. Chris Curtis is that little bit smaller, and I think he'll want to do that kind of like almost a sort of Sean Strickland style where he comes forward and does move around a lot and has a sort of Philly shell kind of style every now and again with his boxing. Not quite to the level of Strickland, but he has a similar style at points and very rarely uses his wrestling. And I think he's fought at welterweight before. I think using his wrestling is going to be tough up at middleweight against a big guy like Barriault, but you never know. But I think this could be a fun fight, and it could become like just a scrappy war. Yeah, and I think that could be fun.
Absolutely. If you've not checked out the archives of this show, you can go and catch some episodes that we've done with Arnold Allen in the past. We've had Arnold on a couple of times. Had some great chats with Arnold in the lead up to his fight with Dan Hooker, where we had Dan and Arnold on, and the banter between them was fantastic. If you're listening to this podcast and you've not come over to YouTube and watched the show, come and give it a look, because we've got a very flashy little studio that's bloody freezing.
It is. Can you see my breath? Because I've seen yours a few times.
A little bit. Yeah. A little bit.
It's actually when we did... It's a random story, but when we did the second series of The In-Betweeners, the school that we were in was like not available to film in, so we had to film in this like abandoned army barracks, and it was freezing, and before every take you'd be like having to drink cold water because they could see your breath.
Really?
Yeah. So I remember there was a scene where we're waiting outside Mr. Gilbert's office, and all 4 of us have just got cold water, and we're like ready to go now, trying to make sure that no one could see our breath on camera, because you could see it on camera. It was so cold. Yeah, that's what this is reminding me of, because I've seen your breath quite
Absolutely. A lot. All you fighters out there training to just try and win that next fight, there's the real fight right there. Be an actor, having to drink cold water so they can't see the breath. Horrible.
Weight cuts more about like cold water, mate. That's where it's at.
Give us a follow on the socials. I guess we're most active on TikTok and Instagram, but we are also on X and Facebook, so please go and give us a follow. It's great to see that the views on these videos are creeping up. We're putting a lot of work into this, and we really appreciate all the support. So if you haven't clicked subscribe yet, please do, and we will see you for the post-fight show. Come on, Arnold Allen.
Let's go, Arnold and Sam Patterson and Arnold Allen. Let's do it.